Welcome to Lesson 3-4. That's Topic 3, Lesson 4. And today we'll be writing algebraic expressions. Now, don't be frightened. Algebra is a scary word to many. Maybe you've been warned about algebra by your brothers and sisters or grandparents or cousins or friends, but it's really not that bad. Let's break this down. You're already familiar with numeric expressions, things like 3 plus 4, or 3 times 2 minus 7. Those are numeric expressions. They're number sentences. They have operations and numbers, but they don't have an equal sign, and that makes them expressions. If they had an equal sign, now we have an equation, but there's no equal sign for an expression. Now, algebraic expressions are very similar to numeric expressions. But before we talk about algebraic expressions, let's talk about algebraic equations, and I'll tell you why. You see, back in first grade, you kind of did algebraic equations when you did something like the missing number plus 2 equals 3, and you were able to figure out, maybe you had some beads to count or whatever it is, you were able to figure out that that missing box needed a value of 1 to make it true. You see, this box was your unknown. It was a variable. Now in middle school, we're going to do something way harder because we're going to do something like n plus 2 equals 3. And you're going to have to figure out that n must equal 1. See, easy, hard, but really not that hard. Now those were equations. And so we're looking at expressions. And remember 3 plus 2, that's a numeric expression. So an example of an algebraic expression might be, I don't know, t plus 7. It's an algebraic expression because it has a variable, a letter, that we don't know what its value is. And sometimes we're asked to find that out. Well, let's write an algebraic expression using some kind of real-world situation. Darius bought some comic books, and each comic book cost $4. And how can you write an algebraic expression to represent the total cost of the comic books? Now, this is kind of similar to what we've done already, but it has this sort of mysterious word. He bought some comic books. Well, how many are some? Well, we don't know. We need an expression for any number of comic books. Let's do a bar diagram to get us started. Well, here's the total cost represented by this bar. And if I had one book, it was $4. There's one comic book. If I bought a second comic book, that's a second comic book there. It's $4 also, and so on and so forth. Every comic book costs $4, and I don't know how many there are. Where do I stop? First, I need to define a variable so I can finish this up. So I'm going to say that I'm going to call the number of comic books to be n for the number of comic books. And so this is going to continue, first book, second book, so on and so forth, and n comic books, okay? And up here is my total cost. That's what I'm trying to find right here. So my expression, this looks like repeated addition or multiplication. I have n groups of 4. And so my expression might be 4 times n. Now remember, multiplication can be written many ways, so I could also call this 4 times n. I could call it 4 times n. I could call it 4 times n. Or I could just call it 4n. See, when there's no operation in between a variable and a number, we assume it to be multiplication. Well, here's a similar problem for you to try. Darius' sister, Rachel, she likes mystery books, and she bought M mystery books. So they're telling you that M is the number of mystery books. And we want an algebraic expression for the total cost of the mystery book. So go ahead and draw yourself a bar model like I did. Go ahead and write an expression to find out the total cost. Okay, so when we're writing algebraic expressions from real-world situations, we need to know what operations we're using, and the words will tell us that. So let's go ahead and look at a couple sentences. Look at sentence A. 5 minutes more than time t. Well, that's more than, that sounds like addition. 10 erasers decreased by a number n. Well, if we're decreasing it, we're subtracting. N nectarines shared equally by 3 people. So that we are dividing there. And if I have 4 times the quantity of something, we're going to multiply. And then plus is add. And so here's another sentence that I need to put into an algebraic expression. And this has got 2 steps to it, so this is a little more challenging. It says write an algebraic expression that represents 8 minus the quantity b divided by 6. So I'm going to read this a little more carefully. 8 minus what? 8 minus what? 8 minus the quantity b divided by 6. So I can't subtract the quantity b minus or divided by 6 until I've written that out. So let's take this into steps. Let's start with the quantity b divided by 6. Well, that's just b divided by 6. Or I could write that as b divided by 6. Either way works. You only need one of them. Now, the problem, though, wants me to do 8 minus that. Well, what's 8 minus that? There you go. I've got 8 minus the quantity b divided by 6. Or I could do this as 8 minus b divided by 6. Either one works. Now, sometimes when we're talking about these expressions, and we want to have a conversation where everyone understands, we need to talk about their parts. Because, well, it's just very important. So anyway, identifying the parts of an expression. The major parts that these can be broken up into are what are called terms. And terms in an expression are separated by addition or subtraction. So here's an expression, 12r plus r divided by 2 minus 19. And this one has 3 terms. Look, if I look at the addition and subtraction, it breaks it into this part, and this part. So this expression has 3 terms. All right, now sometimes within a term we talk about what are called coefficients. Co means to go with. So a coefficient is a number that goes with a variable. So in this case, 12 is the coefficient of r. Okay, if I asked you for the coefficients of that equation, you would look at 12 as a coefficient. Now the second term is a little more complicated. I have r over 2, and that is a division problem, really, right? R halves is just r divided by 2. The whole thing, the answer to that is a quotient, and it's made up of a dividend divided by a divisor. Now the last term, that's another thing we need to have the name of, and that right there is called a constant. It doesn't have any variables in that term, so it's called a constant, just a number. It's constantly 19, never changes, always 19. So let's do a couple quick examples. If I have 4y minus 7, that's an algebraic expression because it has a variable. Y is a variable, it's unknown. It varies, perhaps, what it is. And with that first term, this has 2 terms. Right? Here's a term. Here's a term. Subtraction separates them. And the first term has a coefficient. Do you know what that coefficient is? I bet you said 4. It is, because a coefficient is a number multiplied by a variable within a term. The second term, right here, 7, that there's a constant, because there's no variable there. It's a constant. Okay, so 2 terms. We have the coefficient 4, the variable y, and the constant 7. Here's another one. How many terms does this have? Well, it has 1, 2, 3. It has 3 terms. 3 terms. Do you know what the variables are in that? I hope you said t and m. Those are the variables. They're the letters that stand for numbers, but we don't know what those numbers are. Do you see any constants in that? I hope you're thinking 8, because a constant is a number all by itself. And how about any coefficients? Co means to go with, to go with what? To go with a variable, that's right. So the coefficients would be 3 and 4. All right, here's one for you to try. How many terms does the expression r divided by 9 plus 5 and 5/10 have? How do you know? Go ahead and tell us, and we'll talk about it in class. All righty then, how about some straight up practice? For A, it says write an algebraic expression for 6 times the quantity 2x plus 3y. Lots of pieces there. So think about that, break it down. 6 times. 6 times what? The quantity 2x plus 3y. All right, give it a shot. In part B, it says how many terms does the expression below have? We have w divided by 4 plus 12 and 5/10 minus 7z. How many terms? All right, good luck with it and see you next time.